Hi everyone, this is Cathy and Florian from Aromagnosis, and we've been leading up to Halloween, Samhain, All Saints Day, talking about ancestors and the way that we work with ancestors. And today we just wanted to spend just a few minutes. We're down by the river with the dogs, and we were thinking about talking just a little bit about ancestors and spirits of place. So this place that we're at is a land that we kind of landed on last April, and it's in a valley that is known to have been a passageway for the Anasazi, and so people have been here for a very long time. There are also battles here between the Spanish and the native people, and it's really sacred. When we're down here, you can feel the generations and generations of both people because of the river and the spirits of place and the animals. There are a lot of bears down here, coyote. So we really wanted to honor that and think about that a little bit, because we talk a lot about our ancestors, our lineages, but place holds the memory and the history and the spirit of the people that have been through here, that have lived here, that have fed themselves from here, that have battled to stay here. I think it's really, really important.
And the contrast is we've been in a few different places recently. We've been in a valley near here, but there's a lot of darkness, and we've had some crazy experiences there, and people we've met from there in our consultation work often have a lot of transgenerational trauma, including slavery and a lot of crazy stories within the families. So the spirit of place can vary rapidly, just a few miles apart, and we don't know what all the factors are. But we went to a place north of here where there was a fire in 1996, and we thought we'd go for a hike, but it was just really haunting, so we didn't even get out of the car. So I think that when we pay attention to the spirit of place, it often explains why certain things we intend don't happen. There's sort of the geological abilities. Monasteries and other places of meditation are often built on certain geological structures, similar with churches. But more than just the geology, there's also the layer upon layer of people, and also the four-leggeds and the plants. So there's all these layers, and when in the concentric circles we hint at this when we talk about the collective unconscious. Obviously there's our family systems, our ancestors, but then there's also the places where we live and where we have lived, and they clearly influence us.
I mean, in a way, as ancestral traumas get passed down through the generations, if they're not worked with and integrated, the same happens with place. Place holds memory. It holds memory in its waters, it holds memory in its rocks, it holds memories in its vegetation, and these memories come down through the generations. And that's why, for example, the place Florian was talking about where we went to yesterday, which isn't that far away, there is a huge fire there, and even the town, it's like it's hanging on with a sort of very fragile thread, and that the energy it takes just to hang on is more than the energy that people have to make something beautiful there. And that's really because when we came back, what we do is we then look at the history of the place and what's happened there. And, there was a lot of battles there between the Spanish and the native people, and a lot of, a lot of heartache and a lot of violence. And you can really feel it held in the land. It was never integrated as it should have been. And the same goes to another place that we've passed through. We used to go and collect plants there, until we realized that something dark was happening. And when we again came back and looked at the history of that place, there's a history of witchcraft, there's a history of these mixed race, actually originated by native people being taken as slaves and then assimilated into the Hispanic families. So they became mixed race, and they took on the family name of the Spanish families. So they then got integrated and forgotten about. They didn't really know who they were. And this comes down through the generations. Same in France. Like when I was living in France, I realized that the country I was working as a herbalist, teaching herbalism, and the country had never dealt with the witchcraft trials. And, when I was growing up in England, where there were witchcraft trials as well, when we were about 15, we learnt about it in history. We had a whole semester of working on what happened, and I remember waking up for that. And in France, the way they deal with trauma is more to push it under the rug, to pretend it didn't happen. And so in the world of herbalism, all these herbalists, for one, they couldn't work as herbalists because this had never been worked through. And two, they were terrified. There was this held fear that came from the land, that came from the story of the land, that they were going to be, if they came out as herbalists, even today, in the 21st century, they were going to be hung in the marketplace, or burnt in the marketplace, or drowned in the local pond, as the witches were. So, place really holds its stories and its ancestral spirits. So that's what we wanted to honour today, knowing that this place, it holds so much. And sometimes when we come here and drum and the big ravens come onto the trees and we can feel the shadows talking to us, and the river that's made its way along this path, for generations and generations and generations, and even the animals that have, been here for generations and generations and generations. There's a signature of place, there's a feeling of place that we really need to honour and work with, and honour, make offerings to place, and tell the stories of place, like we need to tell the stories of our ancestors, so that those stories can be transformed and that healing can happen. So that's it. Did you want to say anything more, Sherry?
Well, I can think of other examples. We can always cut this out later, but when we went to that place in France 2 years ago with the Chinese doctor, that place was really haunted. And then also Vienna, in Vienna it's sort of like the sugar in the pastries is really a mind control drug, and you can always tell the dark places. And recently in Vienna they've put little cobblestones with the names of people that were taken to the death camps because, it's, again, these unconscious forces, when we're unconscious of them, that's when they can control us. And even if we don't know all the details of the story of a place, if we honor it, if we allow that energy is still there, then it's less unconscious, and then it rules us less powerfully.
And the thing is with communicating with plants, we can go and communicate with individual trees and tune into them, and that actually connects us with the whole of that species. But something that I think we need to remember is that when we're in place, to feel the whole place, to feel yourself rooted on the land, to feel yourself part of place, and that the place resonates as a whole. We're not just tuning into a plant or harvesting a plant. We're feeling and honouring the whole place. And in a way, that is, the places we find ourselves are a mirror to our psyche. So, for example, being here on this beautiful land after, I'm 55 years old, and most of my life I was searching for a place that felt like home. Sometimes I'd arrive somewhere and think, this is it. But each time was sort of, life pushed me on. And just being here, however long I'm going to be here, I feel that it's a sign that my healing has happened, and that my psyche is mirroring back to me the fact that I can live in such a beautiful place, that there's water, and it's clean water, that the land is full of strength and memory and people and animals and wildness. It's a sign that I have done this healing journey, and it's mirroring my cycle. Obviously my journey will continue. Healing never ends, but somehow it's, for me, a mirror of having got somewhere, and to be able to enjoy that and live that and honor that is, really important. So it's snowing, which is also a blessing, and we just wanted to say that it's Halloween's coming up. Look at the place that you're in and honor the ancestors of the place that you're in, even if they're not your ancestors. I mean, my ancestors come from India, Ireland, France, England, the Basque country, and Scotland. So, none of my ancestors are from here, but at the same time, especially my indigenous ancestors from northeast India, they resonate with the ancestors from here, the ancients. And they've guided me in many ways in this land. So think about where you are and the ancestors of the place where you are, and honor them this Halloween.
Well, that's it.
Yeah, lots of love.
Ooh. I think your battery just died. I hope